Well, here we are, another stop on the journey to finding hope, inspiration, and positivity in this crazy world we all live in. You are listening to Changing the Perspective podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and like this video below. If you are listening on a podcast service, please like our podcast on your preferred service. No matter how you choose to hear this interview, we are grateful you are following us on this journey. Hey everyone, welcome to another interview of Changing the Perspective. Today, I have another person I met in our podcast community. It's been a super amazing place to meet some amazing people. And today I have Eric with me. We are going to talk about really kind of the PTSD part of men's mental health and kind of all of that stuff. He has written a book. He is kind of doing some cool things. So I invited him on to kind of hear his story and help us kind of break the stigma of all of that surrounds that, and a little bit with men specifically. So welcome to our interview. I appreciate you being here today. All right. So tell us where this starts for you.
I grew up in the city of Chicago, and I've mostly played sports all my life, and I was used to that structure and everything like that. I decided to go to college. I went to Northern Illinois University in 2004, but I really didn't participate in school. So I ended up getting kicked out, and I was given an ultimatum by my mother to stay home, get a job, or go to community college. And I really did not want to do that. I figured I needed to do something else. And I had friends that joined the military a few months beforehand. And hearing what the recruiters were saying and things like that sounded interesting. So I figured I'd go check it out myself and look through a bunch of jobs. And it was something that I needed to do. I needed to get away from where I was. I wasn't in a really good place at the time, and decided to join in the summer of 2005. I ended up going to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri for training, and I became a combat engineer. My uncles were former Vietnam vets, and I spoke with one of them, and I found out that he was a combat engineer as well in Vietnam. And he gave me a lot of advice on what to expect in Fort Leonard Wood, things like that, in the job. But the job for combat engineers, the description was clearing minefields and building fortifications. That's mainly for soldiers that were in World War I, World War II, and Vietnam. But as the Iraq War was going on, these roadside bombs were a big deal. And the military decided to use combat engineers to find these roadside bombs. And it later became known as route clearance.
Okay. So how long were you in?
I was active duty from 2005 to 2010.
Okay. Okay.
And I ended up.
Go ahead.
I ended up getting stationed in Germany. I wanted to go there. I have family that was there, and I've been there a few times, so I figured it'd be someplace that I'd like to enjoy, get away more than being in the States. And then I ended up doing 2 deployments, one from 06 to 07, and the other one from 08 to 09.
Okay. Wow. So we're in Missouri. We pass Fort Leonard Wood to go to St. Louis all the time. So I'm very familiar with that, as well as my ex-father-in-law was the 101st Airborne. So I've kind of been around a few bases in my day. So I at least am familiar with that part. So combat engineer, you cleared roadside bombs. So in that, I assume you're clearing those so that convoys don't get hit or don't run over or whatever, right? I mean, I don't understand that. So
yeah, went from building fortifications and clearing minefields, and the description went to route clearance, which was clearing movement for U.S. forces and Iraqi forces. So we had to make sure that the roads were clear. My first deployment was in Baghdad, So that was the hot zone during the time from '06 to '07. That was really the height of the Iraq War. That was also when President Bush had his surge.
Okay.
We were there at the time when that happened, and it really, you could tell it got busy because it was, I believe, about extra 10 to 20,000 troops that he sent in there.
Wow.
So we noticed that it was getting crowded because lines at the DFAC were getting longer, and more convoys going out, and we were constantly out there. We would go 6 days a week. It would be 3 platoons, go morning, afternoon, at night, and our vehicles were constantly on the move those 6 days because we always had to give it over to the next uh, platoon. So yeah, we were busy.
Yeah. So then tell us where kind of this PTSD type factor comes into, your world.
First experience of it was being out there every day. We were constantly getting blown up or being shot at, things like that nature. Me myself, I've been blown up twice, but a few of my friends have been blown up 3, 4, 5 times.
Wow.
The PTSD kind of really didn't set in until Christmas of '06. We were out on a night mission, and we ended up losing 3 soldiers that night, and 1 was severely injured. That was when it first really started creeping in, because they were really good friends of mine, and a lot of that kind of memory loss, almost like they were gone. And I always had to remind myself that they were, or I would tell my buddies, "Hey, I'm going to go talk to so and so," but they're not really there. So that mindset really took a toll on me.
Yeah.
And then 3 months later, we'd lost another soldier who was another dear friend of mine, and it was even more hard because we were losing more soldiers in our platoon. So the days off became less as well, and it was just constantly being out there, and this high stress level of always being out there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like in the military in particular, PTSD from that combat zone is definitely a huge factor. In the military, do you all get a chance to decompress with like a counselor or anything like that? Or is it more of a you compartmentalize it and move on type mentality?
During the deployment, it depends on where you're at. If you're on a smaller base, it'd be kind of harder to talk to someone. But if you're on a bigger base, yeah, you have your company chap or your battalion chaplain, who are kind of therapists, but I mean, not necessarily,
Right.
unless you go back to wherever you were stationed for redeployment. Yeah, they would give us questionnaires, things like that, what we experienced. And it was really eye-opening when I came back my first deployment, because a lot of the things I had to mark down because I'd seen a lot of things.
Mhm.
And there were times that, yeah, they would make counselings and things like that for you to go see a therapist. And I did a few times, but I just didn't really want to speak to anybody about it. And that also at the time, a lot of the things were giving out different types of pills, things like that, to calm soldiers down. And what I was seeing was my friends, they weren't acting the same. They were just, it was more like a zombie type of approach, like nothing was there. And I did not want to ever feel like that. I didn't want to be there sitting in a chair, just completely drained and really depressed and not wanting to do anything. I never wanted to do that.
Yeah.
So one of the things when I did leave the military, I tried to find my own ways to cope with these things.
Yeah. I have a few friends who are military, so I understand at different levels. Some were really good at compartmentalizing and others really struggled. And it's been weird as, they're now kind of retiring out and all of that to see the difference in who they are now versus what I knew of them. But I also feel like they don't want to talk about it. You said, I don't want to talk to anybody about it. I definitely feel like that's a theme. Do you feel like that is hard because you're more of the guy, you should be tough, or just because of what you saw, you just don't feel like you want to kind of relive it all?
Yeah, I grew up with that stigma too of you being a guy that you have to keep your emotions and things like that. So I did keep a lot of it in.
Yeah.
The only person I wasn't really able to hide it from was my uncle, the uncle that I spoke with before I joined.
Yeah.
When I would go visit him, he would notice a real big change in me and he would sit me down and talk.
Yeah.
He was really the only one I would talk to. Otherwise, the only people I would talk to were the guys that I was with
Mhm.
during those missions and things.
Right.
Sometimes it would creep out, when you come back from a year-long deployment and there's no drinking or anything like that. So usually when guys come back, it's just usually an all night drink fest for about a week. And a lot of the times I would go over to my friend's house and get a few of us in there, and then we start talking about these events.
Mhm.
And a lot of the wives would be kind of taken back, or they would stay. Sometimes they would even leave the room because they didn't want to hear, because they even knew those soldiers as well.
Right.
So it was really hard for me to come back and try to talk with people. I would say little things here and there, but it wasn't until I wrote my book where I just absolutely let everything out and every emotion that I had. A lot of my family members did not know what I actually did. They knew I would clear bombs, but they didn't know how severe the job was. It wasn't until they read it, that they knew my emotions and what I felt.
Do you feel like you hid that from the people around you fairly well, or do you think they saw things, they just didn't want to approach you about it?
They knew.
Okay.
I mean, I have my memorial tattoo of the guys that I lost, so they knew that I lost friends.
Okay.
They would just tiptoe around it.
Yeah.
Just small stories, things like that. They didn't really want to get into the details of it all, because sometimes I'd just shrug it off and just move on with something else.
Yeah.
But uh, toward around 5 years out of the military, it was when things were starting to creep in. I ended up taking up fish keeping. So I used to keep aquariums and things like that. And
Yeah.
it would keep my mind off of the military. It would keep me more focused on that. And
Yeah.
it helped a lot. After a while, that really didn't do as much anymore. So I ended up going back to college, and I actually ended up in the library and found a table which a woman was sitting at, and said Veterans Resource Center. And so I went up to her and I asked where are you guys located? And she said that she was located seven blocks away from my house, that I didn't even know that this center was even in my area.
Okay.
And that was kind of disheartening for me. And I was kind of mad about that, because I mean, I wish I would have known earlier that the center was there. I ended up going and talking with a therapist, but at that time, I was actually telling my real emotions, and I was getting sick to my stomach. I just would feel nauseous, and I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
And a couple more years went by, and in December of 19, I had a breakdown in my kitchen.
Mm.
All that emotions that I had and pain and things like that just finally all came out, and I decided, hey, maybe I should do videos and tell the stories of what actually happened. But I'm not too social media savvy, so I wouldn't know how to get those videos out there. So I decided just to start writing. The more and more I wrote, the more and more I felt better.
Yeah.
So then I decided that, hey, I'm gonna say every single emotion that I felt during that time. And the more I wrote, I could just feel the pressure off my shoulders, and going to the pages. I didn't have to carry that pain anymore. I left it on I left it on paper.
Yeah.
And for the past year, I've felt much more at peace I used to have nightmares all the time, and I haven't had a single nightmare in about a year.
Wow.
But there's still little things that I can't get over, little quirks, things like that. But I figured that was the biggest hurdle that I had to accomplish, and I'm more at peace.
That's awesome. So that's where the book blossomed. Basically, it's your journal.
Basically,
Yeah. Okay. So tell us what the book is called.
it's called A Bomb Hunter Story: My Life Clearing the Roads of Iraq.
Okay. Give us just a quick kind of synopsis. Obviously, it's your job. Does it end with like things are better and whatever, or is it just the stories of what you did?
Um, when I was in college, I start there. I was severely overweight when I joined the military. To Army standards, I was me myself. I'm 6'3", so to Army standards, at 19 years old, I had to be 180 pounds.
Wow.
I was actually 270 pounds,
Okay.
and uh, that was another thing. I'm like, how am I going to be able to do this? I talk about the struggles I had in basic training with the weight. I actually ended up losing between 60 and 70 pounds in my basic training
Wow.
because of all that work. And it just gave me more confidence in myself to do things. I go through my time in Germany and the different trainings that we had to do, getting ready for the deployments, the different things that happened during both of them, what soldiers actually go through with the traveling and families and
Mhm.
the brotherhood and everything. And at the end, I talk about my time leaving, how my views changed on a lot of things as I got older.
Yeah.
And I talk about a little bit after the military and what brought me to this point that I am at now.
Yeah. So have any of your military brothers read the book?
Yes, they have. A lot of them helped me out with a lot of things,
Okay.
especially dates, things like that. A lot of them tell me, "Oh, you got to put this story in, you got to put that story in," or yeah, some of them I can, some of them I can't. So maybe for a later date, I might talk about that stuff, because a lot of the guys that I was with are still in. So I don't want to be writing things about them while they're still in, and they're all in high leadership positions.
Right. I understand that. They would appreciate you withholding probably.
Yeah.
Are they like thrilled that someone's writing a book that's so real to the situation?
Yeah, they are. A lot of people didn't know what we actually did.
Okay.
Oh, you hear a lot of the stories of different other type of units. So they make movies about those type of soldiers and things like that. You never hear about us. So this was one of the things I wanted to actually tell people what we actually did. And a lot of the times I get shock and awe on why you actually really did that. Yeah, well, we didn't have a choice, but at the same time, we liked doing it. We knew that we were making a difference, and we saw it while we were there that we were making a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. So where do people find the book?
Right now, it's on Amazon, so it's either on paperback or Kindle.
Okay. And we'll make sure that I get the link from you so I can link that to the description of this video. So anybody that's listening, it's in the description. Go check it out. Are you doing podcasting? Are you doing any type of blog, or is the book kind of your main thing?
The book is my main thing, but as I learning more about PTSD and what soldiers actually go through, I've been doing a lot more podcasts, getting that awareness out, because I get a lot of questions I get are from family members saying that they have soldiers that they're not quite sure how to handle them or
Yeah.
approach them and things like that. I try to teach them that there are ways and there are resources out there to help them. The problem is that these resources aren't really shown out there. You might turn on the TV and you'll get commercials about joining the military, but you'll never see a commercial about uh, resource centers for veterans where they could get help. I
Yeah.
know when I left the military, was in inactive reserve. So I was still in the military, but they could call me if there was a real catastrophe, things like that.
Right.
The last 3 months of my contract, I used to get emails, phone calls, even recruiters coming up to my door having me to go back to active duty. And not once I ever got any information on a resource center or a hotline or things like that. And as soon as that last day came where I was completely done with the military, emails, phone calls, and recruiters stopped coming. Never heard anything from the military again.
Wow.
So, I mean, I like to do these so people get more awareness out there, because the suicide number has actually gone up this year. Now it's about 22 soldiers a day.
Yeah.
And I know a few years ago it was 21, and I know in 2010 it was 20. So I mean, it's going up fast.
Yeah.
And things need to be done about it.
You would think, with that being such a prominent issue, that would be something that they would address the second everyone got back from deployment or whatever, like that the military would put protocols and procedures in place for those people that saw some major things.
Yeah, they should. But another problem is that a lot of these soldiers are from small towns in middle America. I'm fortunate enough to be in a large city where these resources are. Some of these soldiers are in these small towns where they might have to drive a couple hours just to get to a resource center.
Got it.
That's, I guess that's the best you can do. You can't have a veteran home center in some of these small areas, but especially the hospitals are only in large cities as well. In Chicago, I know we have about 2 or 3, but I mean, for maybe some states, there might be only a couple, even just in the state.
Right.
So it's unfortunate, but I mean, it's something has to be done.
Yeah. If they could at least offer some type of a program for doing online sessions or something with those small town people. I mean, that's something's better than nothing, right? I mean, like anything. And
it's also soldiers that are overseas. What I mean by that is that there's actually soldiers that are from different countries, Puerto Rico, Guam, Palau, these small islands that are in the Pacific. There are soldiers that come, they join, and for a number of years they become American citizens, but they end up going back to their homes, and those services aren't there. So the best probably they could have is a hotline. So I mean, there is struggles.
Yeah. Wow. So what advice do you have for those people, the people coming out of the military that are experiencing PTSD, or really anybody who's had some sort of trauma that's experiencing the PTSD?
What I learned the most is that you have to have a plan. If you leave the military without a plan, you're going to go straight downhill. That's where it leads to the homelessness, the drinking, the drugs. When I left, I wanted to join the Chicago Police Department. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get the job because I had a lot of hearing loss. I even tried to join TSA, but my hearing loss prevented me from getting those jobs. So I had a plan, but it went a little bit downhill.
Yeah.
But that's when I decided I should go back to school. And me being in the military paid for my entire 4 years of college. So, I mean, there's always that plan onto it, but you have to have a plan. If you don't, then things could get really bad.
Yeah. Is there any online resources that you know of for those individuals?
The one that I found helpful is actually, if you go on Google, you say VA Resource Center. It'll bring you to a page where you actually could type in your zip code, and you click the tab of how far you want to check the distance, and those resource centers will pop up.
Okay.
That's probably one of the first steps you could do. Hotline numbers, so most of the time they're hit or miss. Sometimes you're on hold for a God knows how long, or it might be a number that's not even in use anymore. So it's
That's
the internet's
terrible.
probably the best time. Yeah.
That is terrible.
Yeah, it is. I mean, especially for my uncle who was a Vietnam vet, um, he would have to wait 6 months, 7 months for a doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever you want to go in, you might drop dead within those 6 months or something. And he actually almost had a problem where he actually had a tumor growing inside of him, and it was expanding on his lungs. And he actually went to a regular hospital, and they told him, "Oh, you're lucky you came in. Otherwise, you could have some real problems. And if he waited, he probably would have ended up dead."
Yeah. Yeah. I know that's been a complaint for a lot of the veterans that I know, is that you wait forever to get a doctor's appointment. But yet, if you want to be a part of the VA system, you've got to just wait your turn. And I know several of them that will travel to certain centers, and they just stack up every appointment they can get from all the doctors they need to see in one day. And it's a lot. That is a lot. I'm amazed. We actually have 2 hospitals here close to us, but we do have Fort Leonard Wood close. And so that's why we have them too that are close to us. So the people here are lucky, but I know that's not normal. So that's definitely not normal. Any last advice before we kind of finish out, or anything you want to just talk about?
No, just having that plan.
Okay.
To,
Just making a plan to get out, or when you get out.
Have a plan when you get out. Make sure you have something lined up.
Okay.
That's half the battle.
I like it. We will again make sure that we put your link to your book into the description of this video. I want to thank everybody who's watching this interview today. If you're watching on YouTube, we just ask that you subscribe to our channel, like this video below, make sure to put a comment. We will make sure to share those with Eric so he sees them. And if you're listening on a podcast, make sure to favorite our podcast service so that you can catch us every week when a new interview comes out. I hope everyone had a great week. Enjoy your weekend, and we will see you next time. Bye.